its results, but if I try to provide you some information, and as Taylor said, I will try to show the main similarities and the main differences between these two studies. As Taylor said, the study was interrupted 1 year ago after more than 1,000 patients who were included. As you know, more than 10 years ago, about 50% of the patients included in RCTs received neuromuscular blocking agents. But in many cases, these patients were presenting moderate or mild form of IRDS. In the most recent RCTs, such as the POSEVA study, which evaluates the use of prone positioning, the authors showed that neuromuscular blocking agents were used in more than 80% of severe IRDS patients with a PF ratio lower than 150, and it was 90% in the prone group. And in the most recent EOLIA trial by Alain Combe, it was shown that about 100% of the patients received neuromuscular blockers. This slide is original one. I have never changed the message, and just to remember some important points related to the accuracy strategy. It was a study which was done using volume assist control mode with PIP and FiO2 set according to the ARMA table. And another very important point was that weaning was started as soon as possible after day 3. And finally, the strategy is not only to give neuromuscular blocking agent during 2 days, but it's also to associate a lung protective strategy using the PIP FiO2 table from the ARMA study, and after 2 days to stop neuromuscular blocking agents and to start to wean the patients using pressure support and every day, if possible, a spontaneous breathing trial. These points are very important. As you know, the difference in mortality at day 90 was not significant, but after adjustment, which was the main objective related to the small number of patients included in this study and the imbalance which was predicted, we reported that there was a beneficial effect of the use of neuromuscular blocking agent, of more generally this strategy. And very importantly, the beneficial effects were only observed in the most severely hypoxemic patients. And I was a little bit worried when I saw the results of the LAND-SAFE study, where many patients, with some patients with mild form of IRDS and some patients with mild to moderate form of IRDS received received neuromuscular blocking agents, which was not supported by the results of the accuracy trial. During this 10-year period, there was only this retrospective evaluation of the beneficial effects of neuromuscular blocking agents, which concluded that there was a decrease in mortality. But there is now the ROSE study, and I will try to show you the similarities and the discrepancies between ROSE study and the accuracy study, because, as Taylor said, the protocol was entirely published 2 years ago. First of all, accuracy was funded by the French Ministry of Health, and the ROSE study by the NIH. There was a 10-year period difference between these two trials, and the rhythm of inclusion was slightly higher in the Rose study. Regarding the design, one study was double-blind, the other was open-label. Regarding the number of patients, Rose study was planned to involve 1,400 patients, which was largely higher than the Acquasis trial. Regarding the main outcome, there was a slight difference. It was all-cause mortality to day 90 in the Acquasis trial, and it was the all-cause mortality before discharge, but it's not a major point. Regarding the inclusion criteria, in the Acquasis trial, it was a PF ratio lower than 150 for less than 48 hours, but some patients were included after 2 days or 3 or 4 or 5 days of ARDS, but when the threshold of 150 was recorded, we had only a 2-day window. In the Rose study, it was also 150, but only during the first 2 days of ARDS and no more than 5 days of mechanical ventilation. And as Taylor said, they used also in some instance SpO2 because there was no possibility of blood gas analysis. Regarding the median time to inclusion, it was 16 hours in the Acquasis trial when the onset of ARDS was assessed, and it was about 1 day after the beginning of mechanical ventilation. And Taylor gave us one result. It was not the final result, I mean, but it was about 7 hours. So the patients were included early in the Rose study. Regarding sedation paralysis protocol, the different steps. In Acquasis, sedation, ventilator settings, randomization, cisatracurium, placebo, and the syringe was stopped after 2 days. In the Rose study, VT low-heat tidal volume was implemented, sedation, light or deep, depending on the arm, cisatracurium open, PEEP adjustment after sedation and MMPA adjustment, and also cisatracurium was maintained in some cases after the 2 days period. Open label neuromuscular braking agents were possibly given to the patient according to a protocol. It was the same protocol in the 2 studies. After 2 days, it was also protocolized in the Acquasis study, and it was the case also for Rose, at least for the control group. Regarding mechanical ventilation, it was done using volume assist control mode in Acquasis study, volume or pressure control in Rose, no recruitment maneuver systematically administered in Acquasis, and proning, inhaled nitric oxide and almitrine were also encouraged when there was a dramatic decrease in PaO2. And in the Rose study, there was no proning during the first 12 hours. But the main difference was regarding PEEP to FiO2. And as for an example, to set FiO2 from 50 to 60 in the Acquasis study, you have to set the PEEP at 10 to reach 60% for in the Rose study, you have to set PEEP at 20. As you can see, these differences are important to consider. Regarding the use of proning, it was 30% in the Acquasis study, and we are waiting for the results of the Rose study. Many patients were presenting an hemodynamic failure, with 90% of the patients who received vasopressors. Regarding the Weaning protocol, it started from day 3, when FI2 was at the maximum of 0.6 in the acroasis study, and used pressure support during the period between ventilator assist control to spontaneous breathing 12. In the Rose study, the criteria was more stringent, and there was the need to stop all vasopressors to start weaning. And the transition between assist control ventilation to spontaneous breathing was not clearly described in the protocol. Regarding the hypothesis, it was the rate of mortality was 50% when we designed the accuracy study more than 15 years ago. And in the Rose study, the authors used the results, the difference observed in the accuracy trial. Regarding the outcome, the main difference, as clearly shown by Taylor, was that there was no evaluation of long-term outcomes in accuracies as compared with Rose, with many secondary outcomes and long-term outcomes, which will be very helpful for us. Waiting for the results, I can make 3 hypotheses. Accuracy strategy was better in these 3 alternatives. If Rose strategy is also better, it would be neuromuscular blocking agents for everyone. If Rose strategy did worse, NMBA are probably harmful, and we have to reconsider its prescription. And if accuracy strategy is better and Rose strategy did not show any difference, it would mean that NMBA are per se not managing toilet, but are part of a lung protective strategy, and we will need to identify specific groups who benefit from the intervention. Thank you for your attention.